Interactive dog training is about working with you and your dog. And the way we worked with it, the way we, I got to wondering, today in this modern world we have so many gadgets, so many ways and things to train a dog, so many techniques, and it dawned on me one day, they were training dogs 10,000 years ago before they had all these techniques. So I started looking into a little bit of the history of dog training. How was it done 100 years ago? What kind of records do we have? How was it done 500 years ago? And you know what? There were trained dogs 10,000 years ago. So I wanted to go back to the very first dog trainers. See if I can understand how they did what they did without all our modern techniques. And obviously they were successful, or they wouldn't have kept all their dogs around. And where did they keep their dogs? Well, they kept them in the cave. The first dog trainer was the caveman. Mr. Ugg, we'll call him for today's lesson. And you think about that. He had wild animals that he got to come into his cave, and then somehow got them to go out and work for him. And they kept hanging around. And they kept communicating. And they kept working together, hunting down tyrannosauruses and protecting the cave in case somebody from the other tribe come in and wanted to snatch baby Ugg's little brontosaurus chew toy. And all of this was done by a caveman. So, with that in mind, I started looking again at training in those days and the effectiveness versus training today. And that's where we understood for the first time what Ugg did was truly interactive dog training. So in looking at all the records and understanding that truly the caveman was the first dog trainer, I tried to ask myself, how did he achieve these results with these wild animals? Obviously, the only plausible answer was interactive dog training. He did things to influence the early wolf's behavior, and the early wolf did things to influence his behavior and how he responded to them. You see, he didn't have benefit of one of these. He certainly didn't have benefit of one of these. So the only thing he had left was pure communication. And this is where I came up with the idea of interactive dog training. How do we get the dogs to respond? Remember, he didn't even have a leash. How do we get our dogs to respond as consistently and efficiently as Ugg did without any of these tools? All right, so you have three basic elements in interactive dog training that have to be present. The first one is attention. Obviously, on the Great Serengeti Plains, or whatever kind of plains they were, Ugg couldn't communicate to the wolf unless the wolf was paying attention to him. So if you don't have their attention, and that applies to you as well, if you're not paying attention, you're not going to learn either. So we need a way to get their attention. The second element of interactive dog training is communication. After you get their attention, it's not going to do you much good unless you can communicate. You got to be able to show that dog what you want it to do. This is why we have all these gadgets that pick up that end, poke the other end, show it a target, give it a bridge, cross the other. But you know what? Pug didn't have any bridges. He didn't have any clickers. He didn't have any collars, but he was able to communicate. In today's world, in this country, we're speaking English. Your dog was raised speaking Doglish. So the second element of interactive dog training is communicating in English well enough that your dog learns English as his second language and eventually forgets maybe some of his Doglish. That's when we're well on the road to a well-trained dog using the interactive dog training, where you don't need leashes, collars, or any other gadgets. There's a third element, and this is probably the most important element that you're going to deal with if you want a well-behaved dog who's truly wanting to respond to you with or without collars and leashes. And that third element, that most important element, is real simple. You gotta be as smart as a caveman. If you ain't at least as smart as a caveman, you really have no business with a dog in today's world. And what we're gonna do in the next episodes that follow is break down these three segments and show you how to accomplish those tasks. Today's lesson, we're going to work on the very first number one thing. We're going to work on attention. How do you get your dog's attention even if he's kind of interested in chasing that cat? Or maybe he's over there sniffing that good looking little poodle under her tail. You know, that's pretty tempting. How do you get him to ignore that little poodle's tail and listen to you? That's what we're going to touch on in this segment. Active dog training, you got to be able to communicate. You're not going to be able to communicate with a creature that's not paying any attention. So what I do when we start all our young dogs, this is a little young 5-month-old Roddy who's in here for training. We teach them their name. I know a lot of people have a variation of this, but it's not quite the same thing. I'm going to put a value to his name, so every time he hears his name, I want him to check in with me. And I know if he's looking at me paying attention, the chances of him following the next command would just increase that much. So we start out at the beginning just by going, hey, Lloyd. Yeah. We just want to get something he really likes. You're going to wiggle it in front of his nose. That way, if he follows your hand, you know he knows something's there. And you say his name and move your hand quickly to your nose at the same time. Lloyd. There you go. When you bring your treat to the tip of your nose, he'll look up, and then you drop it down. You look him right in the eye. When you make eye contact, that's when you give him the treat. Simple as that. Hey, Lloyd. Atta boy. He doesn't have to sit. In fact, I'm going to give him a treat before he does, because I don't want him to think I'm asking him to sit every time. So we're going to let him walk off. Now there he is with a toy. Let's see what kind of response I got. This is the second day I've done this game with him. He's interested in his toy, and I'm going to say, hey, Lloyd. Atta boy. And you notice just the sound of his name, even though he was playing with his toy. Good job, young man. Even though he's playing with his toy, he dropped that toy immediately, and he came to me. He looked at me, wandered around, but this is all we do. Remember, step one, something enticing. Step two, quick jerk to your nose. At the same time you say his name, Lloyd. Atta boy. Step three, make eye contact. Step four, give him the treat. One more time. Entice. Name. Eye contact. Treat. That's a good boy, Lloyd. We come out here to this semi-rural setting. You can see we have livestock and cattle. There's goats further down the road. We've got this long stretch of road out in front of us with all sorts of great sniffs. Off to the right, the other side of the road, we have a subdivision. Usually some barking dogs behind these fences as you go down the street. So we have lots and lots of distractions for a high energy, very curious 2-year-old. All right, so we got our energetic young lady here. I just remembered we want to make sure everything is correct for these type tests. So we have disclaimer. We have no, you can see, no electrical gadgets stuck somewhere around her neck, and no way to, once we remove this leash, no way to assure that she's going to listen to us unless she's well trained. In fact, I'll tell you what, just to make really sure that we don't have, you know, some of these dog trainers, you got to watch them close. I don't want anyone to think I've got some little screws or nails poked on the inside of this leather collar. Taza. So she's all free to run wherever she wants to at this point. And we're going to see what happens if we just let her wander wherever she wants to wander, and then use our name game to bring her back, hopefully. So where you at, little girl? All right, so we've got her out here a little bit. She's running where she wants to run, meeting the cattle. So she's taking off, and we're just gonna test our name game theory. She gets further away. Taza! And you see the results we got. Good girl. Good girl. So, even with the cattle to be curious about and to distract her completely off leash with no collar, that's how effective it is. We can let her go out again. We simply say her name, Taza, and that's the reaction we get every time. That's interactive dog training at its finest. No leash, no collar, and we still have the two of us working together as a team, and that's probably what the caveman had to do.